So there are some problems with our simple time class. So one of the problems that we talked about was the formatting of hours, and minutes. So specifically, there are no leading zeros. So there are no leading zeros for hours and minutes less than 10. The other problem is there are no data integrity checks. No data integrity or validity checks. So as an example, I can create a time object with my explicit constructor, and I can pass in negative values, or I can pass in out of range values. And these values will be stored in the private data members, and clearly this is not a valid time. I can also do the same thing through my set methods. I can pass in negative 37. I can pass in other values. Both of these are out of range, and so now I have an invalid time object. With the enter method, if I call enter and I'm running my program, I can enter any values. Not only can I enter out of range values, but I can also use any character for that colon. And so this would be read as a valid time based on the current implementation. So this is one of the most complicated things when you're implementing a class, is you've got to make sure that all the routes to your private data members, so here I have hours and I have minutes. Well, what are all the different routes that a programmer would use to store incorrect information into these private data members? So obviously you have the explicit constructor, you have the set methods, and you have the enter method. So all of these ways, these methods, store information in these private data members. And so this is how incorrect information could get stored in your private data members. What I'm going to actually do is I'm going to implement my data validity checks here. And then I'm going to make sure that enter calls set hours and set minutes. And I'm also going to make sure that my explicit constructor calls set hours and set minutes. And here's why I'm going to do that. I only want to implement my data validity checks in one place. I don't want to implement them more than once if I can avoid it. And then I will set up my explicit constructor and my enter method and any other method that actually manipulates set hours to make sure that it goes through set hours and set minutes so that I can apply those data validity checks. And by writing them only once, if I need to change them at some point in the future, I reduce the number of changes I have to make, and I also reduce the number of potential mistakes. So we're going to look at how to implement the data validity checks, and then we're also going to look at formatting. And the main way we're going to do this is by using an if statement.